All right, here we go. Welcome to another episode of the Non-Victim Nation podcast. I am here today with Brandon Jones, who is a very good friend of mine. Worked for Fieldcraft Survival, as you might tell by the hat he's got here.
Yep.
And I met you actually here while you were training, doing one of their courses for is it called self-defense?
Personal
Personal
defense.
defense.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
right,
I think we might have actually met prior to that. I think we met up at Overland Expo
right. That's
for the
where I
first
met you
time.
there the first
That's
time.
what it
Yeah,
was. Yeah, yeah.
right.
So I was up at the Fieldcraft
hmm
booth for that,
hmm
and I think you were there with Jake, if
Yeah,
I'm not
Jake and I
mistaken.
had come up
Yeah, yeah,
together, and
yeah.
yeah, so we ran into you and Mike Hernandez
Yep,
and Kevin Stella.
yep.
So yeah,
Yeah, we
well,
had the whole crew out there, man.
right.
It's good.
It was a great event.
Super
We
fun.
walked around all day checking stuff out
It's
there. It's
almost like
like,
there's too much.
yeah,
Like you can't get to all of it.
right.
It's so big, and I think the Flagstaff one. I know they do a number of them across the country.
hmm
Think the Flagstaff one is one of, if not the biggest.
Right.
So it's just all the vendors from across the country and world are there, from South Africa to Australia and
Yeah.
everywhere in between, it seems. So, giant event. But yeah, I think that's technically, I think, where we first met.
hmm
But yeah,
Right.
that was good, man.
Um, yeah, I mean, walking around there and checking out, I mean, I had kind of a list of ideas of things that I wanted in my head until I
Yeah,
got there. It's like, wow, there's
yeah,
so much to this, you
yeah. You
know?
can go crazy there.
Right.
Unless you go into it with a very specific budget or
hmm
leave your cards in the car or something. I don't
Yeah.
know, man. Like just have a set amount of cash to
hmm
go in with. It can get out of control very quickly.
Right. So did you get a lot of time to like actually go and check stuff out while you're there, or just
No.
you guys were busy with
Yeah,
everything?
usually we're so busy with it that
Mhm.
I mean, Sunday, you kind of get a little bit more time
Right.
to go running around. Unfortunately, this year was Friday, so we get up there typically Thursday and
hmm
kind of set everything up and stuff, which is kind of like the vendor check-in day.
hmm
Um, and so we were up there Thursday, kind of got everything set up and stuff, and got ready for the show to actually open to the public on Friday. And then
hmm
basically all day Friday, it was just dumping rain the entire day. So I think
Okay.
you guys came up
We
Saturday, so
did.
you
Yeah.
missed that. So yeah, it was just like mud pits everywhere. The only upside to that is that there was a ton of our windbreakers that were sold
Right.
because like nobody really had a whole lot of
Right.
like rain jacket preparedness.
hmm
So there was a ton of people that ended up over toward the Fieldcraft booth, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're seeing everybody walking around with our Fieldcraft
Yeah.
windbreakers on. So
Perfect marketing.
yeah, it was great. So that worked out well. But
Uh,
yeah,
and
so
so
yeah,
you do a fair amount of like overlanding stuff just on your own, correct?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So how exactly did you get started or interested in that?
Primarily through Fieldcraft.
hmm
So I kind of first got involved with Fieldcraft back in 2020.
hmm
Um, Ended up going up to, so this was when Fieldcraft was still based in Prescott. Headquarters was in
Right.
Prescott. And there was a bug out course that was being put on. My cousin Nate, Doc Jones, had mentioned to me that he was interested in going up and taking the course and kind of seeing what it was all about. And he had mentioned Fieldcraft Survival to me before,
hmm
but I really didn't know who Glover was or anything about Fieldcraft at that time. And so I had bought my Tacoma probably 4 or 5 months prior to that.
hmm
Um, and said, "Sure, let's enroll and go up there and check it out, see what it's all about." So we did, and Glover had one of his vehicles there for the course. It was his Forerunner, and was kind of just showing what vehicles can be capable of
hmm
if you kind of do a dedicated rig build out.
Right.
Um, and I've done things in the past like off-roading and some four-wheeling here and there, not a ton, but I really didn't have any ambition on doing that with my Tacoma. Like maybe just kind of a lift and some bigger tires, and that was probably going to be about it. The
Right.
Tacomas are so capable as is, and so I
hmm
didn't really have plans to build it out when I had purchased it. Hence why I got a limited instead of a TRD off road or a TRD Pro.
Right.
I went with the model that looked the cleanest at the time of all the ones I test drove. Um, and the limited kind of had some of the bells and whistles with it, heated seats and leather and a bunch of that kind of creature comfort stuff.
Right.
So it was very well taken care of. And compared to the other models that I test drove, the
Hmm.
TRD Off Road and Pro, at least those specific models, they were just in much rougher condition and much higher mileage.
Right.
So when I bought my Limited, it was still considered new because it had like 12,000 miles on it, and it was a
Hmm.
2017. I found out that the previous owner actually played baseball, like Major League Baseball, Seattle
Oh, wow.
Mariners. So he really only drove it when he was down here for spring training.
Right.
And so it was like garaged all the time and
Hmm.
had hardly any mileage on it. So in 2020, I'm buying it with 12,000 miles and it's a 2017. So that's why I went with that model.
Hmm.
And again, I didn't have the plans of building it out into an overlanding
Right.
rig at that time. And so it really wasn't until we went up and did that first course with Fieldcraft
Hmm.
and kind of got some exposure into that and um, specifically putting vehicles into situations of getting them stuck and what recovery looks like and what kinds of tools you may consider carrying in your vehicle
Hmm.
and how to properly get somebody out and then learning about approach angles and departure angles and why lift matters but tire size is kind of extremely important as well and suspension kind of is the foundation that all of that's built upon and really starting kind of from the ground up of learning what it would take to build out a rig like that
Hmm.
to have true capability off road, not just the ability to go off road, but kind of dominate off road type thing.
Right.
But it's not necessarily a rock crawler by any means.
Yeah.
There's way crazier vehicles out there that have all kinds of accessories and modifications done to them, or they're dedicated rock crawlers.
Right.
The thing that kind of piqued my interest with overlanding was that technically you can still daily drive it just fine. You don't have to make a huge sacrifice on MPG, but you can still be driving around a very capable rig
Hmm.
as your daily driver.
Right.
But it can get you to places that not a whole lot of people can get to
Hmm.
off road or up in the mountains and
Right.
that kind of thing. So it really piqued my interest when we went up and first attended that
Hmm.
bug out course. Um, and so that's kind of what the initially got me going on deciding to
Hmm.
build out my truck.
Right.
Um, and it unfortunately kind of just went crazy from there. And so
Right.
here we are today, and I would say it's probably only like 60% done in
Okay.
terms of where I want it to be. So
Nice.
it's kind of a long process. I represent like the common man,
Right.
the weekend warrior, where it's not a marketing rig.
Yeah.
But I have a pretty decent looking truck, and it's
Yeah.
uh, obviously not just about aesthetics, even though that
Hmm.
certainly plays a part. But I have a very capable rig,
Hmm.
and it's the evolution of it has been a slow process, but
Right.
I feel like I've done it right with a lot of research behind everything that I do to it. There's not a whole
Yeah.
lot that I do to it without kind of doing a pretty significant amount of research
Hmm.
prior to ordering or installing some new modification or part. So
Right.
yeah,
So, on the subject of being in a capable vehicle,
yeah,
I was just telling you before we started recording that Hunter and I had gone up to Greer, Arizona,
yeah,
and decided we were going to go do some hiking, and went up this trail, and there was maybe a foot of snow. I mean, not a ton of snow,
right.
but it was just enough to fucking get our car stuck. We have like a Chevy
Doesn't
Cruze,
take much.
and yeah, and just like got just stuck almost instantly. It's like, okay, this is not cool. And we're like messing with it and pushing it and trying to, do everything. And I remember the last time I saw you was at one of the Go Rigs and Coffee events,
Yeah,
and Hunter was checking out your truck and like I forget what they're called, the things you put under the tires to get traction
yeah,
when you do,
max tracks
yeah,
or
those.
recovery boards.
Right.
There's a number of different
He was
types.
asking what those for, and I was explaining it to him.
Yeah,
And so when we were stuck, it's like, this is why we need those things.
probably would have come in handy.
You know?
Certainly.
It's like we were fortunate that like somebody came by in a much more capable vehicle than
Yeah.
ours and was able to pull us out like that. I mean,
Yep.
it took nothing, but it just
Yep.
the idea of getting stuck in even that little bit of snow or just, it's like that's not a situation I ever want to be in. So I
Right.
want a vehicle that's much more capable than,
Yeah.
where you're not having that as a potential risk,
Yeah. It's not a great feeling to
Yeah.
to get stuck like that and feel helpless.
Hmm.
in fact, there's kind of a funny story that I don't even remember exactly how long ago it was. I was fairly young, but my dad took myself, my sister, I believe my younger brother was there also, but we went up north for something. I don't even remember exactly what area we were up north.
Hmm.
Probably somewhere near Strawberry because we used to go up there quite a bit.
Right.
My dad loves that area. It's a beautiful area up there. Uh, so anyway, I don't remember the exact area, but we went up there and took his truck. And my dad has always had uh, a truck of some kind. I shouldn't say always, but for uh, a big portion of my life, he's always had some kind of a truck,
Hmm.
typically like a Chevy Silverado or something, a full size truck. Um, but the Silverado that he had at the time, I think it was like a '96 Silverado, and it was two-wheel drive.
Hmm.
So we were up there, and I think we were doing just kind of some random trails, nothing crazy at all. It was mostly just dirt road, but
Hmm.
um, I think it had rained or something recently, and so the ground was much softer.
Hmm.
And so at one point, I think we saw an elk or a deer or something
Hmm.
that made him pull off to the side of the road. So we were kind of just watching it, and then little by little, the truck is sinking without any of us knowing.
Right.
And I'm like 12 at the time, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
even remember how old I was, but I was pretty young.
Hmm.
And then and then when after we had gotten done kind of watching the elk do its thing and then had kind of wandered off, into the woods, and then all right, time to go, put it in drive, and then
Yeah.
tires spinning, and we're not going anywhere now.
Hmm.
And there was nothing on the truck or in the truck
Right.
that was going to get us unstuck. I would end up learning years later that you can do things like taking old tire mats, or tire mats, wheel well mats,
Uh-huh.
even pieces of carpet.
Hmm.
You can use branches, you can use
Hmm.
sticks, you can break those up. Anything you can do to one kind of partially dig out your tires
Hmm.
underneath and then be able to shove sticks, branches, carpeting,
Right.
mats, whatever, anything to get you traction will essentially work the same way. It's just recovery boards nowadays, and the technology that has gone into those makes it significantly easier.
Hmm.
But off-roaders and four-wheelers, I mean, they'll tell you they've been doing that kind of stuff for years,
Right.
improvising and using whatever they needed to get
Hmm.
themselves unstuck. That was uh, neither an option or even anywhere in my knowledge base at that point in time,
Yeah.
and it wasn't for my dad either. So we were stuck, and so I think it was a good few hours, I want to say, before some guy randomly come driving down the trail,
Right.
and I think he had some big old Ford Super Duty or something, and it just yanks us right out of there like
Right.
it was nothing. And it was kind of uh, funny because it's a fairly insignificant story,
Uh-huh.
except for when you find yourself building out an overland rig that you
Hmm.
want to be as capable as possible.
Right.
That kind of thing has an impact on you years later when you're building
Right.
that out, and knowing in the back of your mind that you never want to find yourself in a situation like
Hmm.
that again, where you feel so helpless and just
Yeah.
essentially waiting on a good Samaritan to at some point come by. We didn't
Right.
have any kind of communication devices or anything. I
Hmm.
mean, this had to have been early 2000s, if not late 90s. I mean, I don't even remember exactly
Yeah.
when it was, like I said, but I was young, and uh cell phone technology at that time was nowhere near what it is now. So the ability to even call for help,
Right.
and it's not like my dad had a sat phone or any kind of
Yeah.
GPS device with a Garmin inReach that you can just SOS if it comes
Yeah.
to that kind of thing. The technology that we have nowadays makes it so that you really shouldn't have to find yourself in a
Hmm.
crazy scenario that you can't get yourself out of, or uh, uh, very easily get help on the way.
Hmm.
Um, that being said, the knowledge and information and all of that along the way is something that is extremely helpful.
Hmm.
And just building out a capable rig, but the knowledge to go along with that.
Right.
Because you can build out a capable rig, you can have a cool firearm, you can have
Hmm.
whatever the gadgets and tools and stuff. If you don't have the practical knowledge to go along with that,
Hmm.
then are you really prepared?
Right.
That kind of thing. So
So it's sort of like along the lines of people who want to be prepared and they buy some guns, they buy a whole bunch of ammo, they buy some freeze dried food. And it's like, all right, I'm ready.
I'm good.
Bring on the apocalypse. It's
Yep,
like, no, there's a little more.
just a little bit.
That doesn't
Yeah,
mean you're prepared. That just means
you have stuff
you have stuff,
that
right?
other people are probably going to take.
Yeah, if you don't know how to use it and you don't have
Yep.
like all the other kind of things you need in place,
Yeah.
like first aid things, for instance,
Yep.
that's kind of important.
Big.
Um, so stuff like it's that same thought process. It's like you're not really prepared
Right.
unless you're actually training and doing it fairly consistently.
Yeah.
Because going out shooting once and 6 months later going out shooting again, that's not training.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
That's occasionally
right?
sport shooting.
Yeah. But I think that it's really cool that Fieldcraft does like the Go Rigs and Coffee things, and they do some of the other. It's not overlanding specifically, I don't think, but definitely like they'll take people out into different areas.
Yeah, we have a mobility experience
That's
that's
what it
coming
is.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's very overlanding
Hmm.
in terms of what the course entails.
Hmm.
Um, but it kind of encompasses a lot of different aspects of overlanding and the term mobility. I know you've had Mike Hernandez,
Hmm.
the mobility director for Fieldcraft, on. Um, the term mobility is a military term,
Hmm.
and so that was obviously adapted into
Right.
Fieldcraft when it was built out. Um, but it encompasses a number of different subjects or categories,
Hmm.
uh, kind of specific to a vehicle or rig that's going to allow you to be more capable than a typical vehicle is going to be.
Hmm.
Um, Especially if it came to a bug out scenario or a situation that you needed to get out of Dodge and you needed to, I mean, you could find yourself in an urban environment and need to get up into higher country quickly.
Hmm.
And you can obviously do that through major highways and things of that nature. But what's not to say that those exact highways are where everybody else is going to be
Right.
also.
Yeah.
So you, it's not a bad idea to have a vehicle that can
Hmm.
get you off road and away from the main thoroughfares and things
Right.
like that. That's where everybody else is going to be.
Yeah.
And to have the type of sustainment on that vehicle that you can actually keep yourself alive and have the ability to survive for multiple days at a time. Sometimes, people even build their vehicles out to have a couple of weeks worth of sustainment in the vehicle,
Hmm.
which is great. And so you can never really be too paired when it comes to that. But
Hmm.
context is everything, right? Not everybody's situation is the same. And so not everybody has the ability to do that with
Hmm.
their vehicles or has the budget, or just the means in general to have like a dedicated overlanding rig.
Hmm.
And so it would have to be their daily driver. And there's going to be compromises in that, especially if you've got children or
Hmm.
anything like that. That you can't just jam pack the back of your truck cab with all kinds of sustainment stuff, but now you've got no room for the car seats, right?
Yeah. Right.
So you've got to be able to compromise
Right.
and build out accordingly.
Hmm.
And the fun part about it is that there's so many different aspects of it, and it's such a huge range of. I mean,
Hmm.
I see people with Subaru Foresters,
Hmm.
and they've got just maybe a little bit bigger tires on it, and a rack system of some sort, and that gives
Hmm.
them the ability to put storage up on top of their roof that they don't
Right.
have to have in the back, hatch area or the back seats. And now they've still got sitting room in there, so that kind of thing,
Hmm.
all the way up to earth roamers that are like $2 million,
Right.
insane rigs that you see up at Overland
Hmm.
Expo. So there's just a huge range
Right.
within the overlanding community, but our mobility experience is designed around getting people out onto the trail that typically already have fairly built out
Mhm.
vehicles, mostly Jeeps and Toyotas and that sort of thing.
Right.
But it's not limited by any means to midsize or people can have full size rigs and trucks and
Mhm.
um, whether you're rocking a camper on the back or wanting to do an off-road trailer.
Mhm.
There's so many different varieties and options and stuff. And so we do trail run stuff in there. We show recovery and what that looks like, very
Mhm.
similar to that very first bug out course I was talking about. And different recovery situations and what those can look like and what would be good things to keep in your vehicle and learn how to use properly.
Right.
The difference between hard shackles versus soft shackles, the difference between a regular tow strap and a kinetic rope, and
Mhm.
all of that kind of stuff that I've learned along my journey of this
Mhm.
of getting very heavily involved into not just the preparedness lifestyle in general, but the overlanding and
Mhm.
mobility side of things. Um, there's so much to learn
Yeah.
and so much to know, and so that's been a really fun part for me
Mhm.
with Fieldcraft. But yeah, we do a lot of that in the mobility experience, and then
Mhm.
break bread at the end of every night.
Right.
It's like 2 day, 3 night type of thing, and so um, yeah, it's just kind of an all inclusive type of experience when it comes to overlanding slash mobility
Mhm.
specifically, and it's a really good experience. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I like the idea that there is such a range from this is going to be my daily driver, and it's just something that I don't want to find myself in a position where I get stuck in a foot of snow or
yeah,
I get high center because I actually went over a road uh,
yep,
median or something like that,
yeah,
which I've had that experience too. You know, driving at night in the snow and like
yep.
just hit this thing and like all of a sudden my car is teetering on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
median in the
and
center of
you're
the
high
road.
centered, and you're like,
It's like
great.
this sucks, you know. Um,
Yeah,
so kind of going from that aspect of it to like, I've heard people talk about the idea of their vehicle is almost like a secondary to their home.
yeah,
Home is home base, so you've got all of your everything that you would want to like protect a family, to protect
sure.
your home, and survive if there was a natural disaster or whatever the thing. And their vehicle is basically just an extension of that, where
Yeah,
they're very capable of getting where they need to go and they're prepared in case they can't get there for some reason.
yep,
You know,
yep.
I really like that idea.
Yeah.
Um,
Glover even talks about it
y-
in terms of being an extension of your rucksack. It's a very
uh,
militaristic term,
right.
but your vehicle should be an extension of your rucksack.
Mhm.
With exactly what you were just talking about, the sustainment that you have and keep in your vehicle at all times, the recovery equipment that you have, the tools that I carry in my truck that are specific to my vehicle. I also carry an additional tool set to assist other people as
Right.
well because Toyotas are metric, so they're all going to be metric bolts and
Mhm.
hardware and things like that. But SAE tool set is going to come in handy as well for
Right.
anybody that might be stuck on the side of the road and something's broken and needs a quick roadside or trail type of repair.
Mhm.
And I'm by no means a mechanic. I am
Yeah.
I am very much a weekend warrior, like I said before, where I tinker on my own vehicle and
Mhm.
try to learn what I can. uh, Mikey Hernandez is the kind of guy that's way more knowledgeable and capable and is like
Right.
actual like mechanic type dude. That is very very good at what he does,
He is
knowledge wise.
he
But
is
yeah,
definitely on the side of let's take the whole thing apart and put it
yeah,
all back
yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Deal.
And then I'm gonna be the guy that's like ratchet strapping an axle, or something along those lines, just to try to limp it off the
Yeah.
trail, kind of thing.
Right.
But that's all part of the journey. It's all part of
Yeah.
that learning experience. And one of my favorite things that I talk about I'm an instructor for Responsible Citizen for Fieldcraft, and one
Mhm.
of the things that I talk about often in that seminar is uh, knowledge. It doesn't become knowledge until you've actually put practical application to it. Until then, it's just information,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
you can have and absorb and attain a whole bunch of information, and especially nowadays with the technology that we have at
Right.
our fingertips in our pocket constantly. You can pull up a YouTube video and it can show you or talk about what you may or may not need to do in this scenario.
Mhm.
But you're really not, at least for someone like me, where I don't learn. unless I get hands on. Like I
Right.
just can't, like my ability to retain information
Uh-huh.
is basically zero until I get hands on. Like
Right.
it's just going in one ear and out the other. I've got to get hands on, and then it makes sense and clicks in my brain of,
Right.
okay, that's how that works. I got it now.
Yeah.
So
That's typically how I learn too.
yeah,
You've got to fuck up at least once or twice.
sure.
It's
Yeah.
like because oh, okay, don't do it that way.
Yep. Yep. Don't do it that
You
way.
know,
Yeah.
and like you're saying, like you can get all kinds of information.
Yeah.
If you had never seen a car before and I explained it to you, okay, this is the gas pedal, this is the brake pedal, this is steering, and just put you in a car, that doesn't mean you know how to drive.
Right.
You've got to actually have the practical experience of doing it. And
Yeah.
then from there, getting out into driving with traffic and
Yeah.
other people, that's a whole other thing on top of it.
Absolutely.
So there are definitely layers of learning and understanding. It's not as simple as just here it is,
Yeah. Here's the keys go.
Mhm.
Yep.
On the responsible citizens class,
Yeah.
is it just you and Nate that teach that?
Here in Arizona, yeah.
Okay. So what does that class generally entail? Like what's that mostly about?
So it is kind of meant to be an introduction to Fieldcraft.
Okay.
It's a free seminar. It's a 5 week seminar at that.
Hmm.
We do it every Wednesday during the seminar schedule. So it'll
Hmm.
go up on the schedule on fieldcraftsurvival.com.
Hmm.
Uh, Anybody can go on and register to attend. I don't remember the exact number of slots that are available before it's technically sold out, and that's
Hmm.
because capacity restrictions, obviously.
Right.
But it's a free seminar that anyone can come out and attend, and it's kind of designed around um, people can come and attend. Maybe you're able to attend the first two or three,
Hmm.
but you've got obligations the next 2 weeks.
Hmm.
It's designed so that the next time it's coming around, you can jump in and take those last two that you missed previously.
Nice.
So it's very kind of fluid that way.
Hmm.
Um, but like I said, it's a 5 week seminar, and we have different subjects or topics for each week. Most of it is very kind of just hitting the wave tops, very
Hmm.
high level, like 100,000 foot level. We don't get too far into the weeds on a lot of it
Hmm.
because that's what our courses are for.
Right.
We're trying to give kind of an introduction to fieldcraft and anybody that may not be super familiar.
Hmm.
Um, and get them to come out, attend a free seminar, hopefully get them back for the next, subsequent 4 weeks of that same course or seminar, and then get them to eventually sign up for a course because that's inevitably what we want them to do because as I mentioned that's where the real tangible application and practice come into play
Hmm.
of being able to um, properly apply a tourniquet or
Right.
properly pack a wound and that kind of thing. That's a first aid, segment of it. But there's 5 different weeks, as I mentioned, and the 5 different subjects each week. So
Hmm.
the first one is pillars of preparedness. Kind of outline the pillars of preparedness and what that looks like within Fieldcraft Survival. Kind of your basic foundation and subsequent pillars and the roof in terms of your overall preparedness and what
Hmm.
each of those look like. Um, so we get into that in week one. Week two is self defense or just defense. Um, and that's much more centered around just kind of self defense and what that can look like. None of it is ever meant to shake a finger at anybody for not caring or anything
Hmm.
like that. Like I said, everybody's at different points in their lives and different points in their journey, and you have to want it. You have to take it seriously in order to
Right.
commit yourself to doing it, and
Hmm.
living this type of preparedness lifestyle. It's something that takes effort,
Hmm.
and you may get to a point where you eventually it's more of a subconscious thing, but until you get to that point, I would say it's certainly something you have to make an effort towards. Because there's 1,000 other things that people could be doing on a Wednesday night, or more specifically for our courses on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And the courses are typically an all day type of thing, a 9 to 4, 9 to 5,
Right.
that type of thing. And so I always make sure to appreciate and show thanks to anybody that attends
Hmm.
our responsible citizen seminars, because they could choose to be anywhere else. They're choosing to be there and better themselves. And that's really kind of how my whole journey has been through Fieldcraft as well.
Mhm.
Just a citizen that like I know I've told you before, but I don't have any kind of background in in law enforcement or military.
Mhm.
So I'm a citizen uh, that chose to start living a much more prepared and responsible lifestyle.
Mhm.
Um, Especially seeing the degradation of society and what that has
Right.
kind of devolved into over the past few years.
Mhm.
So anyway, I kind of went off on a little bit of a different direction there, but getting back to it with the responsible citizen classes,
Mhm.
week 2 self defense, week 3 is first aid, week 4 is survival, and then week 5 is emergency management.
Okay.
So all of those have their own subject matter and, like I said, 100,000 foot level view of
Mhm.
things. It's meant to be an open discussion,
Mhm.
and uh, kind of getting that communication going amongst the attendees there, and showing people that hey, there is more like-minded people out here in my own community than I
Right.
maybe thought there were.
Mhm.
So it's very much promoting that, and then subsequently getting them to attend an upcoming fieldcraft course where they're going to get far more practical application
Mhm.
and um, ability to get hands-on stuff.
Mhm.
um, Especially when it comes to first aid, our personal defense course as
Right.
well. Or maybe they just want to get more involved in the mobility side of things and
Mhm.
start wanting to build out a vehicle, or maybe they've already kind of started that journey and want to go in a different direction, as opposed to doing more of a rock crawler kind of dedicated vehicle. Maybe they
Right.
want to go more of the overlanding
Mhm.
style. So regardless of what it ends up being, the whole purpose of it is, like I said, that kind of introduction to fieldcraft, and then
Right.
subsequently getting them involved in courses to better prepare themselves and live their best prep lives.
So during those classes, excuse me, during the classes, like what's some of the more common feedback that you get from the people that are attending?
Um, I mean, it's all over the place. There's a ton of different responses in terms of like at the end of each course
Mhm.
and what they kind of got out of it. Um, I also do that for responsible citizen as well, in terms of just asking them what they thought it was going to be versus what it was, and
Mhm.
whether or not they felt like they got value out of it. That allows us to adjust accordingly. But um, yeah, I think, I mean, overwhelmingly, it's positive.
Mhm.
The vast majority of people that come out uh, to a seminar or a class or a course, I see a number of the same faces at subsequent courses.
Right.
So that always makes me feel really good, and seeing them progress along in their
Mhm.
journeys. Um, but yeah, it's overwhelmingly positive. I love the community aspect of it. I
Mhm.
love the networking aspect of it.
Mhm.
It's just it's a very positive thing, because we're all kind of recognizing that hey, we may all be at different points in our journeys,
Mhm.
but we're all kind of working towards the same goal here.
Right.
Freedom loving, patriotic Americans that just want to better themselves, be able to have the ability to protect their families should anything go south, um, and meeting some really great people along the way.
Mhm.
So I would say overwhelmingly positive feedback with just about any of the courses that we put on. So
Right.
yeah,
So I know that a lot of people tend to think of prepping as they give it a very negative connotation
yeah,
because they've got this idea in their head that we're all doomsday,
yeah.
you know,
Everything's
people,
apocalyptic
yeah,
and
we're waiting
zombies and
zombies and
yeah,
things like that, right?
yeah,
But the reality is when you find yourself in a situation like, we were just going to go hiking, we
right,
weren't going any place where we were expecting to be in snow,
yeah,
so the idea that we got stuck on a dirt road someplace,
right,
hey, it felt really stupid because it just didn't seem like something that we'd run
sure,
into,
yeah,
but then being at the mercy of like having to wait for somebody to come and help us get out of that situation.
yeah,
What if it had been, much worse than that? What if
Yeah.
it had been at night? What if we were low on fuel? What if,
Or the weather got
well,
worse,
the weather got worse,
blizzard
like
rolling
any
in.
of these
Yeah,
kinds of things,
sure.
It's like in our vehicle, it's a daily driving car that we don't have, and we have like some first aid things in there and basic things,
Yeah.
but I haven't really fortified it and made it that,
Right.
extension of the
Yeah,
rucksack
yeah.
as it is.
Bulletproof glasses on order, right?
Exactly. I mean, even just the simplest thing of like being able to get us out of that little bit of snow,
Yeah,
we didn't have it,
sure.
So,
Yep.
I remember hearing a story about a gal that was caught in a really bad snowstorm. I don't remember where. And it turns out that she was less than like a mile or two from home
Yeah. I
and
think that was
just
in New
kind of,
York.
yeah, and just like decided to huddle down in her car and keep the car running.
Yeah, she was in
And,
communication with her family as well, like up until her phone died or something. But yeah, I don't
you
think her
know,
vehicle lasted too long. I don't think she had very much fuel in there, but she
well,
was not very far from home.
yeah, if I remember right, like the snow piled up and eventually blocked the
Yeah, the
tailpipe,
exhaust. Yeah,
and
yeah,
she ended up dying of asphyxiation. And she
yeah.
was almost home,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So things can go wrong that you
In
would
an
not
urban
think of,
environment,
that you just wouldn't expect. And it
sure.
doesn't mean that you're a total cuckoo because
Mhm.
you want to like be prepared for something because you don't know,
Right,
it's like, people that have never been in a car accident, they typically don't believe that they can't be in a car accident just because they haven't been in one,
right,
but it would be the same thought process, to say that I don't need any of those things
right.
is sort of ridiculous if you think about it, considering the number of natural disasters and things that happen and just little things, that happen, you
Yeah,
know?
we talk about that in our responsible citizen classes as well. I mean, it's what and it's not a term that is new or anything. It's not like we invented this, but Nate and I talk about it all the time, and it's what we call magic thinking. It's this thought process that you're going to leave your house and go do something, whether it's going to dinner or going to the movies or whatever,
Hmm.
literally any scenario, and that you are expecting that you are going to return home at the end of the night
Right.
and everything is going to be just fine.
Hmm.
That's magic thinking, technically,
Yep.
because I mean, when you understand just how many vehicle accidents are happening by the second in this country,
Right.
and then you couple that with natural disasters. I mean, there's a flood warning in effect for where I live currently
Hmm.
until 5 p.m. tomorrow. Uh, you know, anything can happen at any given time.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you have to live your life as a paranoid individual. It's simply uh, consuming information that you then put into practical application that then becomes knowledge after so much
Hmm.
application and repetitive um, practice of that, that you can get to a point where you're living a very prepared lifestyle, and will essentially find yourself prepared for any kind of scenario or situation,
Hmm.
and that you should be able to get yourself out of or have the ability to get you and your loved ones, your family back
Hmm.
home. Because anytime you leave the house, I mean, if you want to think of it in military terms, you're leaving the base, right? You're going
Right.
outside the wire,
Right.
and you are technically not safe until you return back home because that's your
Right.
fortified,
Right.
residence. And so, um, if you kind of look at it that way, and something that an old Delta guy told Nate one time, and ever since Nate talked about this story, um, it's something that has really kind of like hit home with me as well. But everything we do is training. It's
Hmm.
simply just if you think of it in that simplistic of a term,
Hmm.
everything we do is training. So, getting better at having an understanding of your vehicle, getting better at having an understanding of home security and what that looks like, and how
Hmm.
you can fortify your home by doing very simple, small things
Hmm.
that can make it significantly harder for someone to break into your home. It's about making yourself, making your residence, making your vehicle hard targets. Uh, and the more you understand about that, and um, like I said, do small things to fortify or prepare, the more comfortable I would say that I end up feeling.
Hmm.
Not paranoid. It's the opposite effect. It's
Right.
I don't have to go into a restaurant and sit in the back corner with my back against the wall so I can be scanning at all times.
Right.
I still go live my life just like normal.
Hmm.
It's simply just having an awareness. That situational awareness is kind of what drives everything. And the more you pay attention, a good buddy, John Correa, Active Self Protection here in Phoenix, one of the best phrases that he has on his YouTube channel is that situational awareness or awareness buys you time, and
Hmm.
time buys you options. So
That's a good way to think of it.
it's literally like I love just simplistic phrases or terms like that that just
Hmm.
make a ton of sense.
Hmm.
Uh, Pulling up to a gas station and just
Right.
kind of doing a quick scan around real quick.
Hmm.
It's something we talk about in our personal defense class that we run here at TACUB,
Hmm.
and we do it in the parking lot as well, and replicate that scenario
Hmm.
of what it looks like to maybe pull into a gas station. You're doing a quick scan. Everybody that's at the pumps and pumping gas or walking in from or out to their vehicles, they're doing normal behavior, right?
Hmm.
That's what you're expecting of people
Right.
to be doing at a gas station. It's the people that are walking side to side or hovering by the front door or around the trash can area. Maybe they've got a bike or something, and it's not to talk bad about transient people or homeless
Hmm.
people. Obviously, people are in unfortunate situations, but it's just being alert and attentive
Hmm.
to what people are doing,
Hmm.
and what that has the potential to do in terms of it can turn into a very negative situation for you very quickly.
Right.
So it's just being alert and attentive of those things, and uh, awareness buys you time, and time buys you options, to quote John. So
Right.
yeah,
So I felt really fortunate the time that I came in and got to help you with that
yeah,
class,
yeah, that was great.
and practicing the scenarios out in the parking lot, and just that idea. I forget the name of the drill, like when somebody's, what is it, 21 feet from you?
Yeah, the 21-foot rule.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
technically the cooler rule,
that's
but
what it
yeah,
is. That the idea that somebody can close that distance in such a short period of time,
yeah,
you really have to know what you're doing,
oh,
because you can, if you freeze, if you like make a mistake, that's it.
yeah,
That.
yeah,
And so putting people in that situation, or running a scenario like that where they actively have to like respond and do whatever is appropriate to keep them safe,
right.
you know, in that space of time, that's a very eye-opening thing for some people.
Definitely.
Um,
It
that-
it tends to surprise people how quickly I can close the distance on them if I'm
right,
the role player in that scenario.
right.
Uh, it's and I won't get too into detail about it just because that's part of the course,
Hmm.
and showing them that there's very simple things that you can do that
Hmm.
will buy you more time,
Right.
as opposed to just cowering down or curling up in the fetal position and hoping for the best. Um,
Right.
there's a number of things that you can do, and
Hmm.
they're very simple things
Hmm.
that can throw somebody off balance,
Yeah.
and give you that extra time. And sometimes maybe
Hmm.
it's just an extra second, but that may be that extra second that makes all the difference, especially if you're someone who chooses to carry. Um, that extra second can certainly make all the difference.
Yeah.
And just to kind of add on to that, obviously I never, as someone who carries, as someone who teaches in these types of scenarios, um, I never want to find myself in a scenario where I have to shoot somebody.
Right.
Obviously, that's it almost goes without saying, but I hate that there's such a stigma around, especially when it comes to the gun control debate,
Hmm.
and uh, the attacks on the Second Amendment, and you name it. There is so many examples. In fact, I think uh, Colion Noir was just talking about it on Rogan's podcast the other day, and the statistics, I didn't even know they were this high, but I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.3, 1.4 million instances of a good guy using his firearm in self-defense,
Right.
or a good guy using his firearm to in defense of another person and another innocent individual. It's staggering. I mean, that's a why isn't that number talked about more? But
Right.
we all know why. But That's staggering.
Right.
And so it makes you feel good that there's that many instances or examples out
Mhm,
there of good guys with firearms
mhm,
doing the right thing to protect themselves or others against someone or a group of people that would wish to do them harm. And there's seemingly just more and more out there these
mhm,
days, or maybe it's just because of social media, we're more heightenedly aware of it
mhm,
nowadays. But it's one of those things that the more I can help with getting that information out there,
mhm.
and encouraging people to carry, exercise their Second Amendment rights,
Right.
um, the better. Um, and then come out to training and put that theory that you may think you're capable of
Mhm.
something, and again, there goes that magic thinking that's also
Right.
incorporated in that of until it's tested, it's just theory. And
Right.
so you may think you're capable of something, which is one of my favorite things to do in our personal defense
Mhm,
class, is kind of get feedback initially in the classroom setting of what they think they might have done in this situation,
mhm.
and we'll show video examples of
Right.
that. And then I say, okay, let's table that and we'll test that this afternoon
Right.
and see if the way you want to respond in this scenario or
Yeah.
what you're claiming that you would do. Let's see how that works.
Yeah.
It may or may not be the right answer.
Mhm.
Maybe we've never tested that
Yeah.
before, and so let's find out. So
Right.
it's fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was a great time to kind of circle it back anyway,
Mhm.
of having you help out with that day.
Right.
I think you were here for the women's only course,
Right.
if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, on that
On that
whatever
day. Yeah.
Saturday it was.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's a good time.
So that goes back to I don't know how many times I've said this on the podcast. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
Mike Tyson, absolutely, man.
no, it's one of my favorite quotes ever
Oh yeah,
because
it's
it's so
great.
true. It's like everybody has this idea in their head
Yeah,
about what they're capable of or what they think they're going to do
yep.
until it's actually time to do that thing. And it's like, well, let's test that
Let's
theory now.
find out. Yep,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
I really honestly believe that those kinds of scenarios, Guardian Training Consulting, they run courses here and at other places where they've got like
Sure.
the big screen, and it's a use of force simulator.
Yeah.
So, they're putting you into a situation and you have to decide whether you're going to draw your weapon, whether you're going to shoot at this person.
Yep.
And it might
Travis Haley
be,
has the same
yeah.
setup at his
Hmm.
place. Have you seen his as
Yeah,
well?
I've
I'm
seen it.
sure I'm sure
Yeah.
it's similar. Yeah,
Same.
it's crazy how good the technology has
Hmm.
gotten nowadays.
Yeah.
It feels so realistic.
Right.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And so, like at the beginning and end of the class, or like the scenarios rather, they'll put like a pulse oximeter on somebody's
Yep.
finger so they can test,
Yeah.
and you see their heart rates just
Yeah,
skyrocket,
through the roof.
But I've seen incidents where people are very hesitant to even draw a firearm, let alone put it to practice, whether it's their in defense of themselves or in somebody else,
Yep.
right? Because you've learned things that you might not have ever considered. Like there was one guy who literally for him it was a moral dilemma,
Right.
because he's a semi-religious person or whatever,
Yeah.
and the idea of shooting somebody is just not something he ever wants to do, but he's being forced because he's in the situation. It's like if you're going to like make that decision that you're going to carry a firearm, you really need to understand all of those aspects before you do find yourself in that situation. So anything that gives people that experience and really tests what they're capable of or what they're willing to do, that's exceedingly important. And I really wish more people would do that.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely something that when I first started carrying, I mean, it's not only did I have to kind of immediately recognize that, hey, if I'm going to be carrying a firearm every day now, uh, one, I can't allow myself to emotionally get
Hmm.
out of control, because that now has a very significant impact should any kind of altercation or situation go down. So that's something that I was pretty immediately cognizant of. Aside from kind of having to learn and figure out along the way of what type of holster I should be using and that kind
Right.
of thing, because it can be certainly intimidating when you're first starting to carry, and how you want to carry, whether you're going to choose to carry, concealed, which I always recommend, uh, or and if you're going to carry concealed, where you're going to carry concealed, whether it's appendix or 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, but getting through that kind of hurdle, that mental hurdle,
Mhm.
is one aspect of it. But certainly the moral aspect is another aspect of it.
Right.
um, and it's something that you kind of have to make that decision ahead of time
Mhm.
of, where do I stand on this? It could be a religious reason. It could be that, I mean, nobody, at least, um, I won't say nobody, but the vast majority of people who choose to carry a firearm are not looking to take a life,
Right.
right? Um, is there some bad apples out there? Certainly.
Right.
Just like in law enforcement, there's bad
Mhm.
apples in a number of law enforcement agencies as well. They carry a firearm every day, and uh, some of them kind of get, you know, I don't want to say that in a negative context, but you can tell when you see a lot of body cam videos and
Mhm.
things that tend to show examples of. It almost seemed like that officer really enjoyed that,
Mhm.
and there's certainly civilians that carry that might feel the same way. That being said, the vast majority of people
Mhm.
are good-hearted, rational-minded people that
Mhm.
never want to take a
Right.
life, obviously. But there's still, regardless, things that you have to think of ahead of time when
Mhm.
you choose to carry every day. It's certainly something that is emphasized and discussed at length in
Mhm.
the courses, especially personal defense. Um, we do kind of a very basic fundamentals in pistol manipulations and handling, um, but there is discussion centered around who currently carries, what they choose to carry.
Mhm.
We get a lot of questions and feedback in regards to different styles and types of carry,
Right.
because there's so many different options.
Uh-huh.
Um, but regardless, you got to choose something that you're gonna actually carry. That's what I always encourage people
Right.
to do. Whether that's going to the gun range and testing things out, feeling it in your hand and what a 365 X macro feels like versus a Glock 43X,
Right.
whatever it is, and having that understanding that, go into the range and actually test fire these, rent them out, utilize them and get a feel for it. That way, exactly what that firearm feels like.
Right.
And having an understanding that the smaller the firearm, generally speaking, in 9 millimeter is probably going to be the most common,
Mhm.
is going to be significantly snappier for the most part
Right.
than something that's metal framed as opposed to polymer and
Right.
compact or full size.
Uh-huh.
There's going to be a pretty big difference between how each one of those feel
Right.
in your hand, and of course your fundamentals and your ability to mitigate recoil and that type of thing. But it all kind of ties in to choosing the correct firearm that you will actually carry,
Mhm.
but then um, that moral dilemma that you've got
Right.
to already kind of think about and decide upon prior to carrying,
Mhm.
and then getting out there and practicing and
Right.
training as much as possible, because you never really can be fully prepared. Nate and I joke about it all the time. Like, when are you actually done? Like, because we've had that question before. Like, hey, so when am I actually prepared? Like, is there
Mhm.
like an end game with this?
Right.
I don't think there is at all. You're kind of just constantly
Mhm.
evolving, and with the way technology evolves, with the way situations and information and the economy changes, it all plays a part. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and it's not to disparage people who have like moral or religious convictions, you know.
yeah,
It's just purely something that you need to understand before you allow yourself to be in that position,
right,
you know, because if you're going into a situation thinking that you're going to protect yourself or somebody else, and then when it comes down to it, you're not capable of that,
right,
you probably shouldn't be allowing yourself to be ever in that position in the first place,
yep,
you know. Um, but going back to the idea of like, when are you done being prepared? It's like, that's like saying, when am I done learning?
right,
You're not ever done
never,
learning. Just because you graduated from high school or college or whatever, it's like that doesn't mean you're done.
Right.
There's always more stuff to be learned. There's always, I mean, it's a constant evolution as a person, as a human being,
Yeah.
to make yourself better.
Yep.
I always like to talk about the clone theory. So if somebody made a clone of you, an exact clone, everything they know, and in 24 hours you're going to battle to the death, okay, with this clone,
Yeah.
right? It's like, so what can you do between now and in the next 24 hours that's going to give you an edge over that clone? So you're the one that lives, kind of idea.
Sure.
So you just kind of always have that idea that I need to be a little bit better than I was yesterday,
Yep.
whatever that means, a little stronger, a little faster, a little smarter, whatever. Do something to always be trying to improve yourself,
Right.
so that you can continue to be better,
Yep.
and make yourself as useful to the people that you care about as possible.
Yeah.
If
Absolutely.
if you're a parent and you have kids, you know, but you're so overweight or your health is so poor or something like that that you're not capable of helping them, you're not even capable of helping yourself.
Right.
The house catches on fire. It's like, how many people can you help?
Yep.
If you can't, then that's something you should be thinking about, and it's a different situation for somebody who absolutely can't. They have physical limitations,
Right.
disabilities, whatever, that's one thing. But a person who is physically capable and has every opportunity to make themselves better
Yeah.
and chooses not to, I think that's a detriment to themselves and anybody else around them.
100%. Yeah.
So
Fully agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's just always important to learn more.
Oh
There's
yeah.
always something else you could be doing,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
It never really ends.
right?
Yeah.
So in the time that you have done like the overlanding stuff just on your own, like I remember you telling me about a situation that you just had in Colorado.
Yeah.
Um, you want to like share that story?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's just, you know, s- something that comes along with the territory, I guess, of having a vehicle that's capable is that
Mhm.
you want to be able to get yourself out of any types of situations and scenarios that you may end up inevitably finding yourself in. Something will happen
Mhm.
at some point, as you found out in Greer, you know.
Right. Uh-huh.
And generally speaking, that goes hand in hand with Murphy's law of what can go wrong will, and
Right.
generally speaking, at the worst possible time.
Right.
So we very much subscribe to that mentality, or at least I do, when it comes to trying to put forethought into an upcoming road trip or
Mhm.
whatever. Camping, any it can be anything. But yeah, I mean, there was vehicles on the side of the road that ended up in the kind of embankment on the side going up into Colorado, and needed some assistance getting pulled out. Snow plows had not gotten there yet, and the snow was coming in pretty thick and heavy at that point.
Mhm.
So ended up having to pull some vehicles out using the kinetic rope and getting them back up onto the road so that they could follow me kind of down the mountain a
Right.
little bit. But yeah, they probably would have been stuck sitting there for quite a while. You can, and it kind of circles back to that moral aspect when it comes to carrying firearms too.
Mhm.
Is just, you think about these things ahead of time, because it's whenever I can be of service or assistance to somebody,
Mhm.
I'm going to. Uh, Given that the context of the scenario and my ability to gauge the safety of it is
Right.
is going to be uh, good to go.
Mhm.
Um, because there's been plenty of instances that I have not stopped or been able to stop to assist somebody on the side of the road. I would like to,
Mhm.
but it's not always feasible in every scenario. But like I said, as much as I can and as often as I can, I certainly will help somebody out, because that person may be having the worst day of their life, right?
Right.
And maybe just something as simple as pulling them out of the ditch when you have a capable rig and their vehicle had slid off the road, then maybe that's enough to make their day, or save them some money from having to call a tow truck or
Right.
something along those lines. Um, it kind of just harkens back to uh, my childhood and growing up in scouting. I was a Boy Scout, and my dad was pretty adamant that I was not going to be getting my driver's license until I got my Eagle Scout. So I got my Eagle Scout pretty quickly.
Right.
From a pretty young age, I've been fascinated with cars and the ability to drive. And so when you're like 13, 14, 15, getting ready to take on the world,
Mhm.
and start driving, um, that was kind of all I was thinking about, was being able to drive. And so got my Eagle Scout pretty quickly, but it just kind of goes back to the principles that I learned during my days in scouting,
Mhm.
and doing a good turn daily, being of service to others, and um, you know, uh, helping people out wherever you can. If
Yeah.
you're physically capable of it, or you have a capable rig to do it,
Yeah.
why would you not?
Yeah.
And uh, I've experienced small towns where everybody knows each other, and that's
Right.
commonplace, right? To help when somebody finds themselves in a unfortunate circumstance.
Mhm.
Um, it's obviously not as common in bigger cities or more populated areas.
Mhm.
So I like to, where I can, interject that
Yeah.
and give people some hope that, hey, there's good people out here, I promise,
Right.
and not have so much negativity in the world at all times, and
Yeah.
is what it can feel like if you let yourself, think that way. Um, so yeah, just helping people out and
Yeah.
wherever you can. So
So I'm not sure if you ever watched the show Yellowstone.
yeah, yeah. I've seen some
I
of it.
absolutely love that show.
Yeah,
I
it
absolutely love it.
it's good.
And there's a couple of scenes in there that really always stand out to me. There's one where there's a woman and she's got a kid, a little small kid, and they've got like flat tire. They're just on the side of the road, you
Mhm.
know. And John, who is the main character of the series, he pulls over and he's gonna help them fix the tire.
Yeah,
And the woman is saying, "Well, we don't have any money or anything to pay you." And he's like,
right,
he goes, "When you're around here, this is you do something because it's the right thing to do.
right. Exactly.
It isn't about looking for compensation
Yeah,
or, you know." And it's always funny to me that like in some places people just don't think like that,
right.
you know.
Yeah.
Another scene that just really, this is probably the best thing I've ever heard. There's this rich girl from California, and she comes out and she sees that they're setting up for like some really big festival. I mean, there's like a lot going on. They're making all this food and
This is in the show as well?
yeah,
Okay.
and getting all this stuff ready. And she comes out and she's talking about, hey, I think I want to go hiking. Can you tell me like where some good trails are? And the gal that's like standing here peeling potatoes, she goes, "You're not from around here, are you?" And she goes, "No. Why do you say that?" She goes, "Well, because if you were from around here, you'd have offered to help."
Yeah, there you go.
I That's one of the most powerful things I've ever
Yeah,
heard. It's
absolutely.
like, how about you look around and see what's going on instead of focusing on
Yeah.
just you?
Read the room.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just, like I said, I love that show, and there are just so many things that I can point to and say that is an outstanding example of how people
Yeah,
should think about things.
yeah,
Um, but those really stand out.
yeah.
So,
And unfortunately, I mean, it seems like you just kinda see less and less of it
mhm,
in the world these days, but, it's not to say that it's not still very prevalent. It's just a matter of sometimes you may come across it randomly, but
mhm,
other times you may have to seek it out,
mhm,
which is kind of going back to what I said earlier in terms of the community and networking that is oftentimes being built at these responsible citizen classes and
mhm,
any of the courses that people come and attend. That is kind of that reassurance that, hey,
mhm.
there's not only like-minded people out there in
Right.
terms of firearms or, overlanding vehicles or whatever, but there's still a lot of good-hearted people out there
Mhm.
that want to do the right thing, that want to help their fellow neighbors out. Obviously, it's very different from what it used to be in terms of uh, people just don't seem to know their neighbors very well anymore
Right.
these days, especially in like apartment complexes. I
Right.
kind of get that because people are always kind of coming and going.
Right.
So it kind of makes it tough. But I mean, you certainly have to kind of make an effort to do that in your neighborhood. But
Mhm.
there's plenty of good people probably, I would assume anyway, in your neighborhood.
Right.
It's just not necessarily common anymore these days for people to show up at your house with a plate of cookies, welcoming you
Right.
to the neighborhood, if you've just moved in, kind of thing. But that's not to say that those people don't still exist. You just may have to be the one to walk
Yeah.
over with the plate of
I was
cookies
gonna say it's your
and
turn to bake the
introduce. Yeah.
cookies.
So, um, yeah, just
Yeah.
that mentality of expecting uh, people to come to you.
Hmm.
I just the more people that I can encourage to have the mentality of go to them, or take that on yourself and kind of take it by the reins and initiate that action yourself. Um,
Hmm.
I think because there's just plenty of good people out there that are good-hearted, rational, normal people, but may not necessarily choose to engage with their neighbors, or allow themselves to be kind of introverted. And
Hmm.
um, if I allowed myself to, I would probably just not leave my house and be an introvert,
Right.
entirely. I force myself to get
Yeah.
out and do things, and
Right.
and interact and build that network and build that community. And most importantly, I think along this whole journey of preparedness in general. And I mean, I'm an entrepreneur technically. I run my own business. I've been doing that for a number of years.
Hmm.
When I first started doing that, uh, it was something that I knew I wanted to do. I wanted to work for myself. I did not like working in an office setting.
Hmm.
I had done the corporate kind of life for a little while. I was in banking. I was a personal banker. I worked in downtown Phoenix. Did the whole kind of corporate style, career for a little while, and just didn't like it at all. So I knew that I didn't want that, but I knew if I was going to work for myself, or do kind of have more of an unconventional career,
Hmm.
um, I knew I was going to have to challenge myself
Hmm.
and get out there and make it happen.
Right.
And so that's something that I chose to do because I knew I wanted to work for myself. I knew I knew that growth really happens when you challenge yourself.
Right.
I had been through some dark times in my life and needed to kind of right some of those wrongs, and kind of uh, get a course correction on the ship, so to speak.
Hmm.
And had to kind of force myself to get out there and you know challenge myself to not only attain certain goals of being able to work for myself, but also, um, especially in this whole preparedness journey with Fieldcraft,
Hmm.
especially. And that's why I encourage people to do that. You can be a good-hearted person, but you're meant to do more
Right.
than just be a good-hearted person.
Right.
You gotta show that. You gotta be that. You gotta
Hmm.
live that. Um, And so the more people I can encourage to be a
Hmm.
responsible citizen, so to speak,
Right.
um, the better, I think, because it just kind of reemphasizes that hey, there's a ton of good people out here,
Hmm.
and we need to just keep doing things that bring us all together, and
Hmm.
prove to each other that we can get out here and build this community together. It kind of harkens back to one of my favorite '80s songs by Starship, "We Built This City."
There you
So
go.
my
Yeah.
girlfriend will laugh at that one because she
Yeah.
knows that's like my favorite '80s song
That's awesome.
ever. But yeah, I'm technically a '90s child since I was born in '87, grew up in the '90s.
Mhm.
But yeah, I have a crazy fascination with '80s music. So
Because 80 is
it
awesome.
rules, man. It's just like it's the corniest, cheesiest type of music out there.
Right.
For the most part anyway. But I don't know. Music is it's funny because music is very much a part of uh my background, I'll
Mhm.
say. And it just evokes emotion in
Mhm.
you. And I like that kind of music that really kind of brings out that type of emotion that just makes you feel good.
Right.
Like there's just too much negativity in this world. So
That's right.
that's partially why I like '80s music so much. Is
Mhm.
and probably because that's what my dad listened to. So growing up, like
Mhm.
that's what I listened to as well.
Yeah,
And so yeah, I just like that emotion that it evokes anyway. So
right.
kind of took a left turn on the conversation a little
That's
bit,
okay. Um, so kind of going back to what you were saying though, as far as like wanting to help people become responsible citizens, I think that that in itself is very important. Like the reason I do this podcast is along that same line. It's to be of service and to help people think differently about things,
Yeah,
right? To understand that they're capable of doing way more than they think they are, and that just because something bad happened in their life doesn't mean that that was it. That wasn't the end
right.
of things, you know.
Yeah,
You can keep going, you can keep doing more.
yep.
Um,
Rogan actually has a great quote about that, I guess, if you
mhm,
want to say. But I mean, the worst thing that has happened in somebody's life
right.
is the worst thing that's happened in their life,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that may be something as minuscule as getting a flat tire or having a blowout on the side of the road.
Right.
Like if that's the worst thing that that person has ever experienced,
Right.
that's the worst day of their life, technically, right?
Yeah.
And most anybody that has had any kind of experience that is obviously much more of a negative
Mhm.
thing than just having a tire blowout. Like that's not a big deal. Well,
Right.
it's not a big deal if you know how to address it
Right.
and deal
Yeah.
with it and can get it done relatively quickly.
Mhm.
But if you don't, I mean, I can see how that can be
Right.
certainly. So just kind of understanding the mindset,
Yeah.
that different people are going to have
Mhm.
uh, based on where they're at in their life and
Mhm.
what they've experienced so far. So
Yeah.
anyway,
So another big one for me is Lion King.
yeah,
When Mufasa is talking to Simba
yeah,
and he says, "Look inside yourself. You are more than what you have become."
yeah,
That one line sticks out to me more than anything else I think I've ever heard in my life,
yeah,
is that you are capable of so much more
yeah,
than even you realize, right? And
100%.
you'll never know until the time comes when it really has to be tested,
Yep,
right?
definitely.
But you can always be doing more. And to stop is the death of everything,
Yeah,
you know.
100%, man.
So
You got to keep going. You got to keep working at it. You got to keep challenging yourself.
yeah.
Uh, I heard a quote one time that it was kind of just an elderly gentleman that had to have been at least mid to late 70s, but he kind of just encouraged me to keep moving,
Hmm.
just keep moving.
Right.
And I was like, what's the key to like you being, because I had kind of prefaced it with the question of asking him like kind of what the key was to him living a somewhat fulfilled life or mostly fulfilled life, because
Hmm.
he was kind of uh, I won't get into detail about it, but just what he was kind of telling me about in terms of things that he had experienced in his life.
Hmm.
And so I kind of just bluntly asked him what the key to living a life that ends with feeling fulfilled.
Right.
And he said, keep moving is the best advice that I can give you.
Right.
But seek out and find things that bring fulfillment into your life,
Hmm.
and you'd be surprised at what you're capable of.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like it gave me chills at the time. And I'm like,
Right.
that's what I'm talking about, like
Right.
people and I I know I quote Rogan a lot. I listen to Rogan's podcast
Hmm.
a bunch, but there's just a number of things that have like stuck with me at times uh from his podcast. And one of the quotes that like hit me the hardest, kind
Hmm.
of uh encompassing uh the other aspect of what you had just quoted, but most men live lives of quiet
Desperation.
desperation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you've certainly heard that before. And uh, that kind of harkens back to when I kind of caught myself or found myself not feeling fulfilled when I
Hmm.
was working at a desk job, and just didn't really uh, feel like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. Didn't
Hmm.
feel like I was um, achieving the goals that I wanted to achieve, or um, inspiring where I could. And I'm certainly nobody special. I work with people that are. I am around people that have stellar backgrounds, that have accomplished things that like I so highly respect.
Hmm.
Um, and as someone that doesn't have that type of a background, I had to look for ways that I could still inspire people to better themselves and either start or continue on their journey of preparedness but self betterment.
Hmm.
Um, and so I came to the realization that I had to challenge myself to
Hmm.
get up and get out of the kind of loophole that I was seemingly stuck in of just this mundane lifestyle.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was paying the bills. Yeah, it was putting food on the table, but was it really what I wanted to be doing? No. So I had to challenge myself and seek alternative methods to do that. But I would say, to kind of circle it all back to you'd be surprised at what you're capable of,
Hmm.
and getting out of uh, that cycle of living a life of quiet desperation. I really uh, knew that I had to challenge myself and get myself into uncomfortable situations, but
Hmm.
to uh, kind of prove to myself what I could be capable of,
Hmm.
and along the way, hope to inspire people
Right.
to get out there and see what they're capable of too,
Hmm.
because most people um, don't really push themselves hard enough to get to that point of finding out what they're
Hmm.
capable of.
Right.
So as much as I can, I try to encourage people to do that, and
Right.
you'd be surprised at not only what you're capable of, but
Hmm.
the type of people that you meet along the way, and generally speaking, that leads to a lot of positivity in your life. So,
Hmm.
uh, for men specifically,
Right.
uh, get up and get out there, challenge yourself, do things that make you uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Um, and and yeah, you'd be surprised at what you're capable of for
Yeah.
sure. It's awesome.
I kind of want to add on to that a little bit because I've heard other people, not just you, say that like I'm not anybody special or whatever, right? And it's easy to have that sort of perspective if you're surrounded by people that have done really extraordinary things, or at
Sure.
least they have more experience because they've been in the military, they've been in law enforcement, they've done other whatever kind of things that they've done, right?
Right.
They're first responders or whatever, right? And say that these people they've done a lot and I haven't done anything,
Right.
right? It reminds me, there's like a story of like an old man and he's walking down the beach and there's clams that have been washed up onto the shore.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of casually, he's picking them up and dusting them off and throwing them back out to sea. The young guy is kind of coming the opposite direction. He sees what he's doing, and we're talking the beach is just littered with these things, right?
Okay.
And the young guy's watching him. He goes like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm helping these things back to where they belong." And the guy's looking around and he's like, "You realize that you could do this all day, every day, and it wouldn't make any difference." And the old man picks one up and he's dusting it off, and he goes, "Well, to this one right here makes all the difference in the world."
Yeah. There you go.
You know,
It's the little impacts, right?
if
Little
if
things.
if you had if you took all of the things that you hope someone would take from the lessons and everything that you try to teach, if even one person learned something from that and it saved their lives,